Queen Boss is coming up to the stage real quick. Taisha Walker, put your hands together for her. So what she's going to be hosting is the Queen's Roundtable. And let me just say this real quick. This is going to be an interactive discussion amongst a panel of female cyclists to engage in thought-provoking conversations around gender-specific topics, AKA, I'm going to take my male ass to the back and let them handle their business. Put your hands together for Ms. Walker.
Thank you. All right, we're going to try to keep the energy going in the room. So after us, we've got a good session. We've got Alma's going to give us a session on race tactics and IQ after the ladies come up. So if the panel could come up and join me on the stage. All right, so you'll get to learn a lot about these ladies through this session. So I'll just do a real quick, brief introduction of all the ladies. So over here on your left, we'll start with Miss Jenna Foley. So Jenna is one of the original founding members of QRT Cycling and is based in Philadelphia. Jenna is an entrepreneur and is an amazing, the thing that's most important to her is that she is a loyal friend, sister, leader, and teammate on and off the bike. Okay. So in the middle here, we have Ajua Abrokwa. Ajua is the founder of She is Focused Fit, right? She is Focused. Okay. So she is a multi-sport mom, also based in Philadelphia, and has done a lot of competitive cycling. All three of these ladies have been, have had the Abundance Mini Grant. They've been recipients of that. So a round of applause for that. Okay. And then finally here we have the queen of fast and fly, because she will drop you and look good while she does it. This is Miss Kimberly Dozier. So Kimberly and her husband Tay they lead the QRT Virginia chapter that now has over 50 members, and so they have done a lot of work in building up that group and helping expand the KRT family out in Virginia. All right, so thank you. All right, so we said we're going to talk about some gender-specific topics. What we really want to talk about is some of the things that are important to us as female cyclists, as being a part of this community, some of the things that drive us. We want to talk about female cyclists, not only on the bike, but also in the industry, because we do have a lot of women who are doing amazing things and have had some amazing achievements in the cycling industry. On that side as well. So one of the important things that we talked about as a panel is that we want this to be very interactive and we want it to be candid. And so we're not holding anything back. We want to have a real discussion about the things that are important to us. So I'll just start off by just giving a couple little statistics on females in cycling. Anybody have any idea what percentage of cyclists are women? So it's 28. About 28% of all cyclists are female. And we see this, right? When you go on rides, it's usually there's a lot more men on the rides than women. That number is growing, and that's some of the things and some of the initiatives that these ladies are all part of and have an impact in. It is growing females in the sport. So with that said, I'll give you a couple more statistics. So in addition to that, the average age of a cyclist is 39 years old. Yep. Yep. So about yep. So only 27% of cyclists are between ages 20 and 30. Right? Okay. So and in terms of race, about 78% of cyclists are white, about 7% Hispanic, 6.8% African American, about 4% Asian, and 4% other. So that just gives you a little bit of background kind of on the demographics of what the cycling community looks like at a higher level. And so we want to talk about some things that are specific to us. So I'll start off with talking about being present. So we talked about the fact that a lot of females don't cycle, and before Jim spoke about some of the barriers that females face in cycling, and some of that is physiological, a lot of it is psychological as well. So want to start off by just talking about some of the things that you guys overcame when you entered the sport of cycling.
Mic check, 1, 2. For me, I'm from Hampton Roads, and I would probably say my first group ride, I was the only woman of color. It's a blessing that I've been able to connect with my husband, and we're very engaged, but it can be intimidating. And I think for me is having that relationship with my bike came first. No one can take that away from me. Building that relationship and then going into those environments and being confident. Not competitive. First thing is be confident. All the other extras that come as you go. But it's very important for us to support each other. Men, women, white, black, Hispanic. It's very important because going into it, even for me, for white American, Asian, I seen white American where I stay. That's the demographics. You go to a group ride, white. White men, that's it. Automatically judged. The way that I look, I wear lipstick, y'all know that. It's a lifestyle. I can't help it. I get my nails done, I have my braids. But it's automatically, there's whispers, there's things that we hear that's it's not encouraging. And we gotta do better at that. We gotta do better at the judgment. Sacrifice yourself to help somebody else when you're out there. Don't judge you. Please don't judge. Because the lipstick, like she said, I'm getting busy sometimes. but it's just continuing to support each other regardless and being engaged for me.
Can we give some specific examples of what are some ways that, because we're talking to a lot of people here that are inside the tent, right? But the people that we really want to reach are the people that are outside the tent so we can bring them in the tent. So can we give some examples of what are some things that people can do to help support women in cycling, some specific examples?
So, one of the things is be inviting. I remember when I first started cycling, I started with a group of primarily men, and they were inviting. It wasn't a matter of, oh, you don't know what you're doing, you're new on the bike, let me put you over here. It was really come out, get engaged. If this is the pace that you're going, this is the pace that we're going to go. If this is your limitation, let us connect you with people that can help educate you and build you up. And that was encouraging for me, and that's kind of what made me want to continue to come around, stay on the bike, and be engaged. So my recommendation is engage folks, help them feel comfortable entering in the space. We all come from different backgrounds, be culturally aware. One of the things that also was helpful was that the club that I was a part of recognized from an apparel perspective, we needed long sleeves. And they immediately made sure when they created the Queen's kits that the sleeves were long, and we were all able to feel included in the space and not feel like, it was going to be a challenge for us to maintain modesty while engaging in the sport. So cultural awareness, being kind, being welcoming, educate, being supportive, those are things that, help me and others that I know feel comfortable being new to the sport and the activity.
I'll be super brief. You mentioned asking things that were specifics, and one of the things that stood out when I was new is sometimes just being, especially, I would be discouraged if we were just a group of women talking to a group of women. So I'm so encouraged that there are men in the room and not just men of color. That is really, really so encouraging to me. But one of the things that I really appreciated was when I was welcomed into the sport, that people, mostly the men that I was riding with, they took the time to ask and not just assume what we needed. And they even, so you asked for specifics, one of the things that they did is if maybe it's not your area of expertise or you don't know what an experience is like for a woman, you go find a woman and you invite her and resource her. So for, we started around the same time. We didn't know how to dress. We didn't know what bibs to buy. We didn't even know what to ask, or we didn't know what we didn't know. But they went and they found a woman who was years, decades further ahead than us in the sport, and she came and did this whole 10-minute speech before one of our women's rides, where she just talked about, here's, as a woman, how you can dress for cycling if you're new to the sport. Here's some websites, here's some equipment, here's some things. The men in our club didn't have those resources to give us, but I do commend and respect that they didn't play dumb. They went and found someone who did have the answers and then brought that person in. So that was a beautiful, really specific thing that they did that I thought was awesome.
So it's great that we have a lot of women who are getting into the sport now. And one of the things that Kate touched on was having bikes in school. Or she said she'd love to see Zwift in schools. And so what I'd like to talk a little bit about is how do we fill the pipeline with young girls and juniors and help bring them into the sport? We've already said it's a relatively older age group for cycling, and I think that's changing quite a bit now. But how do we get these young girls in the pipeline? And I think one of the key ways that we do that is through grassroots efforts. And so I wanted Ajua to spend some time, because she is focused, is exactly that.
So one of the things that I recognized maybe 2 seasons ago, I served as a youth cycling coach for a program out of Philadelphia, BCYC, Bicycle Youth Cycling Coalition. Yes, thank you. Brain fart, lady. And my group was all boys. And I'm like, where are the girls? And they're like, we don't have any girls that wanted to participate. I'm like, well, who's going into the schools and, representing this program and trying to recruit? And they showed me, and I'm like, all right, this may be the reason why we don't have any girls, because they don't see cycling as something that is of interest to them, and they don't see anyone who kind of looks like them, comes from, communities and backgrounds that they come from, engaging in it, so it's not for them. So I thought about, what could I do? Because one of the things that I try to do, if I see a challenge or an issue, you talk about it, but then you also do something, right? So I'm like, what can I do? And I sat down with my daughter, and I'm like, I want to try and engage teen girls and create a space for them to become aware, right? And that's what I did. So last summer, I held a camp for teen girls aged 14 to 18. And the camp was centered around exposing them to different aspects of the cycling industry. So a part of it was engaging in the physical activity of biking, right? Get them on a bike, have them engage in biking. However, they were like, what if we don't want to be on a bike, but we're interested? Well, there are different ways you can become engaged in the industry. So we had different folks come and participate, and I had some of my fellow Abundance mini grant recipients talk about their experience in racing. I had a junior cyclist who was their age range, talk about her experience as being on a pro cycling team and how she became involved, and they asked very age-appropriate questions, and that helped to really light the interest, in wanting to learn more, and they started following her on Instagram immediately, and it was a great exchange. In addition to that, we talked about, what other roles could you play in the cycling industry? And I brought in some of my equipment that I have. And I remember this was the most introverted girl. She picked up the helmet. She was like, this helmet is shaped pretty weird. Is it to help you be more aero? And I'm like, oh, see, well, here's the thing. She's thinking along those lines. And then afterwards, she said, I want to learn more about this. Who could I talk to? So I felt like that was a win. And that was the purpose of me. That was like a pilot program. The purpose of me providing it was to try to get non-traditional girls, urban teen girls in Philadelphia who don't ride bikes really, aren't really interested in the space with one another, learning about the sport, the activity, the industry, and then figuring out, okay, if there's a lane for you here, great. If it's not, at least you had the exposure. I'm really big on exposure and experience. So my work is centered around going into the places and spaces, being representation on multiple levels, and just providing that exposure and experience to a population that typically would not have access or have had it.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the industry side of cycling, right? Because we've seen as the demographics of cycling is changing, we're seeing a change in the representation, we're seeing a change amongst brands, and we're seeing more diverse representation in clothing, in style, and in a lot of different areas of cycling. And so Jenna has had quite a bit of brand experience, so I wanted to see if maybe you could touch on how you see the industry side of cycling changing as the demographics of cycling is changing.
I feel very spicy, so I don't know where this will go, but I don't think I can speak to how much I see it changing because I am still very new. So with that in mind, I'm being very intentional to put myself in a place where I can learn. I'm a corporate girl, I'm a systems girl, I'm a type A, I'm an army brat, it's who I am. And so I like to come into a space and see, okay, what does this look like on the business side? I love sports at large. And so to come into and find a sport as an adult that I had no awareness of, so I am so thankful. I wish I had someone come into school like a Jua and share it with me as a teen, but I come from an athletic family. So as I'm trying to learn and look at this industry, and half the time I'm calling Rasan and I'm like, what does this mean? I'm like, how do we fix this? And I'm noticing things or showing up to races and just trying to learn what sits above, what is the framework, at least here in the States, what sits above the group ride, and because that's like really where my passion is. And I just started to notice what I felt like were just big holes in the system, and I went back and forth about whether or not I would share this today, but I'm going to. So last week, I follow a very prominent, large body within the cycling space. You can guess, or I'll tell you later who it is. And they had posted on Instagram multiple slides of people, professionals, qualified people who were added to an advisory group for their governing body. And there was probably 7 to 8 individuals who it was shared that were being added to this advisory group. And I was very, very encouraged to see that more than 50% of them were women. And so I was so happy about that. And then I was just looking through and I was like, these are people who are professionals in an industry and in a sport that I really love and am passionate about and see as a part of my life for decades to come. And then I realized I didn't see any color. And so I was like, I want to bring this up, but I'm encouraged that there's women, and I just was like seeing that, and I'm like, I don't see anyone who looks like me or someone my age. And so I commented on the post and I said, I love seeing how many women are in these pictures. This is wonderful, and I'm very excited to see more diversity to come. And I thought that was I just thought, I was like, yes, go team, we're doing great. Someone commented under my comment and said, why would we want to see more diversity and more women in essence, in leadership positions for a sport that primarily is not those things? And I think maybe 45% of it was discouraging to me, but I think 55% of that really lit some fire in me because I said there's so much work to do. And it also reflected such a limited and a narrow mindset of how much, like, look around this room and how beautiful it is. And I'm very passionate about when women show up into a space, knowing how much value we bring into it, especially women of color. And so for me, I think it would be foolish of us to show up into a space, whether you are the group ride mom who just shows up and makes everyone feel really welcome and makes sure that the guys don't wild out on their ego, or whether you're the competitive racer who is leading a grant program, that we show up with intention. And I think you mentioned something that we talked about before when we were talking about like what we wanted to discuss and accomplish with this panel, that it's not just, like, we're gonna show up, we're gonna do the work, we're gonna talk about diversity, but like, I don't have to tell us that. It's the people who are not in the room. It is the people who sit in the decision-making rooms. It is the C-level executives. So what I really am passionate about seeing, like, change within, from my perspective, is us going from needing the opportunities to being in positions where we create those opportunities, and less of us standing on the podiums. And so for me, it's more about how can I build better podiums for people to stand on. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that will be in 5-10 years. It's exciting, and I think there's a lot of work to do, but yeah, really valuing, the spending dollar that we bring into this space as people of color, what we bring to it as consumers, as fans, as spectators, as athletes, and I think just really having, a assuredness of the value that we bring into this space, whether that is in the industry or not. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Could have been worse.
So let's talk a little bit about just being comfortable on your bike, right? So a lot of times what I've seen is you show up to a ride, there's not very many women, and there might be a couple of women who are the strong women, right? And a lot of times there are other women who might not be as quote unquote strong on the bike, and there's a little bit of intimidation, or I don't want to ride with them, or like, when certain people show up, like, oh God, like it's going to be one of those type of rides, right? And so I think that also contributes sometimes to the mental side of women being discouraged in a lot of cycling situations. And so I'd like for Kimberly to talk a little bit about just being comfortable with your bike, whether that's racing your bike, riding your bike at your leisure, going 14 miles an hour, just doodling, right? Everyone doesn't have to be a racer, and I think it's a lot of times we get caught up in, as we grow in cycling and get faster, the natural inclination is people, are you gonna race? Are you gonna race? Right? And everyone doesn't want to race, and that's fine. Everyone doesn't have to race, right? Some people just want to ride their bike.
Right. What you just said, all of that. So, yeah, going back to me starting, I had to build my own relationship with my bike. Did I know I wanted to race? No. Did I know what discipline I wanted to pick up? No. But it was encouraging to even join a club, finding support, finding like-minded individuals. And sometimes that means connecting with your community or your culture to build that confidence level that you have. So I think we could do better, again, at the support system. New riders that come in. Yes, we like to ride fast. Do you always have to do that? No. You get an opportunity sometimes to help someone else. The bigger picture is to grow the community and the culture and diversity. So go to a race. If it's a group ride, you want to do a takeaway at a group ride, go to a race. Be more consistent with the support systems. You walking the walk, talk the talk. I want you to start walking more. Where did you come from? I came from 10 miles of suffering at 10 miles an hour. And it's growing pains is where you want to go, but you also want to create the space too. Create your own space. Don't look at what someone else has. Ask questions. Be accountable for asking questions, getting to know them as well, because some people don't know that every time you come to a group ride, you're trying to race. Is that necessary? We said this was a community ride. Why are you here? Simple questions. So it's just down, drilling down to sometimes you don't have that mindset to remember where you came from. If there was no one there to support you, I may not have the support that Ajoy had. I didn't at those group rides. I didn't. They would automatically look at me and say, this is the A group, so you might want to start back. No, I want to start right here. Give me a chance. Don't look at me and just count me out. Don't look at how long I started riding and count me out. I get emotional. But let people get a chance. Especially you see anyone. You may see another male, another woman. Give us a chance, the opportunity to build what we want to build. Help us create the space. Do more in that space. I'm pro Queens. I'm pro Queens.
Further from what Kimberly just made mention of, I recall it was early in our cycling experience, and when you're new, you're trying different things. Like you're trying on road bikes, we're trying road. Some of us were gonna do like triathlons and duathlons, different things. We were excited to be on the bike and we wanted to explore. And there was an individual, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm sure you'll remember this because it was said to me as well. They were like, you guys are all over the place. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, we don't know really. That's why we are kind of like dipping our toe in, different disciplines or areas or trying different things. And they're like, you're racing, but you haven't been on the bike that long. And you're like, okay, but we're trying it, and why would you want to discourage us from engaging? Like, one of the things that I have experienced, and I'm sure others of you in the room have experienced, is just folks look at you and they make so many assumptions. And no, I am new to the bike, yes. However, I've been an athlete my entire life. So I transfer skills over. We transfer skills over. Discipline, we transfer, competitiveness, consistency over to the bike. The assumptions that are made, I'll use the term disrespectful, but also encouraging. Because you think I can't, then that really pushes me to show you that I can, right? And it's not really me proving to you that I can do it, it's proving to myself that I deserve to be in a space, I know I can achieve, and you don't know what you're talking about, right? So then you try, but that's something that we collectively, I think, can work on, just making sure that when you see that person that's new, or when you hear someone talking about wanting to try to do something that they haven't done before, they're new at, yes, you should try that. And even if the first time it hurts, it's going to, but stay at it. You may like it, but don't be discouraging, because we get that external to our community. We don't need to have that going on within our community, if that makes sense.
All right. So I know we got started a little late on the sessions, and so we're a little short on time. So I want to thank you ladies for joining me on the panel. And and in closing, if there are any final thoughts that you guys want to leave the room with, or anything that you want to share in closing, the floor is open for you to do that.
I love my queens.
Your queens love you back. Anybody from the audience have anything that they wanted to ask? Amma?
Very curious. Like, who are your biggest role models in cycling?
Ooh.
That's a good question. My issue right now is that I'm struggling to find those people. I know they're out there, and I think that illuminates some of the issues we've talked about today. Is I showed up to a sport and I said, and everybody I asked a question said, and so I'm really encouraged. Even when we talk about like the average age right now, I sit in that demographic. Or even when I look around on the ride and I'm like, this is all my parents. Which is good because I value maturity, but I told you guys I felt spicy today.
You're done. You're done. Thanks, Jenna.
Oh, yeah, sure. I always get excited when I see women engaged that are moms. I'm a mom, I have 3 children, and the bike, the cycling, that's like my thing, but I had to figure out how to fit it into all the other responsibilities that I have. So when I go to events and I hear women talk about being a mom and balancing, that integrating their activity or their sport into their lives, I get inspired. I don't have a specific role model. However, I do identify different women who kind of mirror what my lifestyle is like and, the responsibilities that I have, and I look for them because the group that I initially started with, Jenna and some others, like I remember thinking like they have a lot of flexibility because they don't have the same, not that they didn't have responsibilities, but like some of the same responsibilities that I had, and that was even discouraging for me. But shortly after, some other women started and they were moms and they had other responsibilities, and I'm like, okay, we can do this and we can figure out how to do this together, and that's what kind of encourages me seeing people who kind of mirror and reflect me. Yep.
That's pretty much the same for me. Something that sticks out in my mind is you don't have to have a position to have a purpose. So that's what I feed off. When I'm in a place, I don't have to have a position to have a purpose. What I feel like I do is I serve a purpose. I serve a purpose to show up the way that I look, the way that I communicate, the way that I support. So role models to me can be anyone. It could be someone right now that I'm speaking and you smiling at me. I might go run, give you a hug after this. I'm happy, like you listening. So role models to me are just being strong, positive, loving yourself, loving the community, loving what you do, happy. I might not even know you, but when you happy in your space, I know you. That's right. Like building best friends. That's just my role model. My role model is continuing to live a life that you're happy with, regardless of what you do.
So, as a male, hearing what I'm hearing, 2 words come to mind: hostile environment. Like, if I see somebody judge it, I wanted to ask about that and how we can operate in that environment, kind of change it. Because if I see somebody judging, Kim, I'm going to have an emotional reaction, but it's going to be a male emotional reaction, and that will elicit a response that may or may not be appropriate. So what I want to hear is, the microaggressions, sometimes the just the maleness of the space. I just wanted to hear how you would want me to make the environment less hostile to you as a man. Good question.
Excellent question.
I'm gonna say one thing and then I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna say one thing and then I'm gonna give it to you. So Rob, today, when I was suffering with Bahati and and Sharon, the second half of that ride when I was at a Sufferfest, every time I would fall back, you would give me a fist bump. You didn't know, but that meant a lot. It's learning the environment, looking and seeing when someone needs that extra push, that extra help, asking questions. It doesn't have to be, okay, I don't think you're gonna last that long. Think about it. Somebody else might take that as funny, but you don't know what's driving this person. You don't know what kind of day they had. You don't know where they came from. You might be the best thing that ever happened to them. So it's looking at the space. Taking yourself out of things sometimes can get us further if we remove ourselves out of it and think about the next person. We're not going to be able to do everything together. You're not renting. Well, there is somebody out here winning races by herself. Where's she at? But even on a where we at? But even, just being on a team, it's like, think about it as a team. You're joining a cycle. All of us in here, yes, I'm KRT, QRT, but we are a team right now. You're listening to my voice. I feel like you're on a team. You're on my team. You're on all of our team. Okay, I'll go on. Let me pass the mic, because, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. Thank you for being engaged as an audience. We appreciate that.
Everybody, we have one more speaker. Once again, give a round of applause for the ladies. Queen's Roundtable. Brother, I don't know if did you ask that question? No, I know it wasn't you, Teddy. Who was the brother who asked that question? That was an amazing question right there. Because sometimes we don't know how to answer that, right? You don't want to do the wrong thing. Very good answer. Good question, and I love the answer as well.